Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming. Welcome to our monthly webinar with Prospology. Today's topic will be Crush It on LinkedIn, Tactical Business Growth Strategies That Work. Yeah, again, welcome. And Chris, maybe we can do the screenshot or here, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I have the gallery view now. So if we want to
Cool.
just kind of like wave and on a count of three, and we can have that going. So one, two, three. Okay, great. Awesome. All right, well, let's get started. I will share our screen now. And remember, please feel free to type and comment and send questions to the chat box throughout our time together. We will have questions at the end, or we may even pause in the middle to go over some questions if there are some very good ones. So let's go ahead with that. Okay, can everyone see these slides before we get started? Just kind of, yes in the chat. Yes, I see a thumbs up. Okay. Ooh, another person. Great. Yes. Okay, great. All right, well, let's get started. We'll start by introducing ourselves and the company, and we will also have a quick poll in the chat. I forgot to set that up earlier, so we'll just do it manually or verbally in the chat. Okay, so with myself, my name is Bernard Chen. I'm a marriage and family therapist in San Diego, California. I have a private practice with my wife. And with Prospology, my role is to be the mental health resource and expert for our students. And you can meet with me for one-on-one sessions. I love working with people to process their life stage transition of becoming a freelance medical writer, transitioning from their regular job, from the hospital, from academia. And we also go over some family background as well, like influences from our past with our relationship with ourselves or our views of our career. And our speaker today is Mr. Chris Hughes. Could you introduce yourself for a couple of minutes and tell us more about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everybody. Chris Hughes. I'm the founder of Zanate Ventures based in Austin, Texas. We're a boutique content studio that works with CEOs and founders, typically of Series A and the higher companies to really establish their story online through LinkedIn ghostwriting and custom copywriting solutions, including web copy, email marketing. We do kind of everything under the sun. I work with 7 different clients all over the world in that capacity. So in my role at Prospology, I work as a brand strategy coach. So I'm working with the Prospology cohorts, with the students within the medical writing cohorts to better understand how to build their brands, how to establish a presence on social media, in particular on LinkedIn, and giving them personalized feedback on their LinkedIn content strategies that they work through as part of their process in the cohorts. Yeah, and excited to be here today to walk you through my process and my kind of mindset about LinkedIn. It's a little bit different than some, and excited to share that with y'all today.
Thanks so much. And I also just wanted to touch on who we are at Prospology and to introduce our founder, Sophie Ash, who is not here today. After building her own six-figure career in medical writing as a freelancer and having her own communications agency, she has founded Prospology with the Thriving and Free Medical Writers Program. If you are an academic, a clinician, a scientist or researcher wanting to get out of your career into a freelance job while still using your expertise and your hard-earned credentials, please consider applying to our program at prospology.com and book a discovery call with Sophie. So now we're going to have a quick poll. I think I'll just do the 2 questions rather than 3. And feel free to just kind of type it into the chat so we can get to know all of you and where you're at with LinkedIn. All right, the first question is, how active are you currently on LinkedIn? And the second question is, how often do you hear conflicting advice on the best ways to use LinkedIn? So we'll give everyone a couple minutes to just kind of describe your experience. feel free to use the chat.
Don't be shy, everybody. This is going to help us tailor things for today.
Yeah, Rona, conflicting advice all the time. I definitely feel you there. I'm a newbie with LinkedIn. Katayun, 3 times a week. That's pretty good, actually. That's probably above average compared to the general population of LinkedIn. Caitlin, 2 or 3 times per week, 30 minutes per day responding and engaging with others' posts. You hear conflicting advice constantly. Awesome. I think this is, where we want to be, or where we want all of you to be for today's content. Katayun, conflicting advice. Liz, not as active as I'd like, but daily respond to others' posts. I see you on LinkedIn as well. It's always great to see you there. Kanika, don't post but remains active and engaging. Okay, so it's like partly active maybe. Rona, irregular poster. Rosie, check daily but post sporadically. That's probably me. I would say I only post when there's like actually something going on, when I'm trying to promote an event like today, or things that I'm actually going to be involved in, but not as much content, sharing my thoughts. Marissa, conflicting advice. Simi, also conflicting advice all the time. Kim, responding regularly and have just begun to post. Great. So I think we have a good mix, but also some consistent themes. So I'm excited for all of you to learn from Chris today on some very solid and repeatable strategies for improving your own experience and also getting better results for your career and business needs. So yeah, Chris, let's get started. I'm really
Absolutely.
excited to hear from you today.
All right, so yeah, to kick things off, I think that there's a big kind of misnomer and a blurred lines on LinkedIn and the difference between activity and productivity. You hear a lot of times that, you need to be active, you need to be engaging every single day, or you need to be posting every single day. And, if you don't do that, you're not going to build the momentum that you need to build to really establish your brand, and establish a voice, and establish a place in your niche on LinkedIn. Okay, yeah, I mean, consistency is important, but it's more important that you find your version of consistency. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Those lines are blurred, but we're here to help you separate out and think about, the separation between activity and productivity. All right, next slide. So what people think is productive. You hear this from guru types all the time. Influencers say you need to spend 2 or 3 hours a day on LinkedIn. You need to be commenting all the time. You need to be sending DMs, a certain number of DMs every single day. You need to be sending a certain number of connection requests every single day. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to build momentum. Or, some people just scroll and scroll and scroll, and they're kind of hesitate to take any activity because of that fear of judgment of, like, if I leave a comment on this post, I might get judged for that because someone may not think that I know what I'm talking about, or I should go participate in these groups that are in my niche because I'll get traction there. That's just activity. It's scattered. If you're doing all these things, if you're trying to spend that much time on the platform because someone's told you that you need to, that's just activity. It's not productivity. There's a big, big difference. It's not productive. All right, next slide. All activity, given the limited amount of time realistically that we all have to spend on LinkedIn, we're all running businesses of different sorts. You're either working to build your medical writing career, if you're in the part of the Prospology cohorts, or you're interested, or you have, another business that you run. I see some people that I interact with consistently on LinkedIn here on the call today. You don't have that 2 or 3 hours a day to sit there and constantly be active on LinkedIn. It's not reasonable. So because of that, you have to be very tactical. And that tactical nature and that tactical approach will help you make the most of the time that you do have to spend every day. It means having a strategy supported by very specific daily activities that are not only targeted, but repeatable. So you know that you can block an hour out of your calendar every day, or 4 15-minute blocks, 2 30-minute blocks, whatever those may be. And you take the same tactical steps every day to build that incremental momentum that'll pay off for you down the road. Okay, next. So what does that strategy look like? I will sit here right now and tell you that if you can dedicate an hour a day to this tactical strategy on LinkedIn, you will see results. The strategy I'm going to show you now, and we're going to talk through, is the same strategy that's taken me from 500 followers in July of 2020, when I was barely even active on LinkedIn, other than to look for gigs in between jobs, to almost 6,000 now, 3 years later. And a strategy that's been the absolute backbone of how I built my business at Zanati Ventures, 100% organic. Every client I have under the umbrella right now has come from this strategy. So let's talk through it. Next.
I want to pause a little bit and add
Yeah,
a quick question, and maybe
sure.
along the way you will go over this, but I'm curious to
Of
know
course.
along the way if there was a moment or an epiphany moment where you realized that this worked, and then you were able to scale it up. Because when I think about
Yeah,
other platforms for marketing and like that time commitment, most of it is a lot of it, many businesses and many self-employed people will kind of have someone else do it. That's kind of, we see
sure.
that a lot in the kind of like online PR
Yep.
world. So I think, yeah, along the way, if it does get to that area, I would love to know how you realize that maybe this is very unique. You found something that works for yourself, and then you were able
Sure.
to bring that to others.
Yep, absolutely. I'll definitely keep that in mind as we're going. Great question. And again, if anybody has questions along the way, you want a point of clarification, please don't hesitate to drop those in the chat. I want this to be as interactive as possible. We're going to walk through things, but definitely want to answer your questions, and we'll set aside a couple of blocks for that as well. Yeah, thanks, Bernard. Yeah, next. All right, so 6 particular elements of a tactical strategy here. Number 1, laser targeted commenting. Number 2, consistent sharing. And again, this definition of consistency is a little bit different for everybody, and it's important that you find your own. Smart and unique DM outreach, leveraging your profile viewers, which is something I don't think that people do very often, interacting with your followers, and isolating your ICP. And this is your ideal client profile. So each of these elements tie together, and they all are a part of that daily hour that I talked about just a few minutes ago. Okay, next. So laser targeted commenting. At least half of that block of that hour that you spend a day, if you can, or let's cut it down, 30 minutes you spend a day should be focused on this laser targeted commenting. So 2/3 of it, if you're going to spend 30 minutes commenting, 15 minutes on your posts and then 15 minutes on the back side of that, or you just want to spend 30 minutes commenting and you're not ready to post yet, your breakdown should be 2/3 of the time commenting on the content of people in your ideal client profile. So if you're a medical writer and you're looking to, position yourself in a way that you can land fresh opportunities, then you'd want to be commenting on the content of people who run websites that are in your niche. Like look for people that are active on LinkedIn that fit that profile. How often do they share? Are they just sharing company updates? Okay, well, maybe that's not the best person for you to interact with. Are they sharing ideas and thought leadership about the niche? Well, that's absolutely someone you should interact with. So isolate those people and make it a point of that 2/3 of that commenting block every day to comment on their content. This serves a couple of purposes. Number one, it pulls more people back to your profile. As you leave comments on other people's content that's really solid and you're contributing to the conversation, they're going to be more likely to come and look at your profile because they're like, okay, who is this person? They're leaving a really insightful comment here. I'm interested in what they have to say, so I want to learn more about who they are. So spend 2/3 of that commenting block on people that fit your ideal client profile. And if you haven't thought about who that is, really you need to spend some time refining that and think about, okay, who are the people I most want to know that I exist and that I have a voice and that I'm contributing to the conversation. And that's your ICP. And those are people you should focus on. And then people who engage with you. I think that reciprocal engagement is very important. So this is exactly how I do it every day. The first 20, in my case, maybe 30 minutes, because this is what I do. I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day, pretty much, is with people in my ICP. I do that through my feed. So I'll scroll through my feed and say, okay, there's a CEO. They're a second connection. They're in a target or like an area of business that I am interested in. I'll read their content, I comment, and then I follow them. Why do I follow them? Because I want them to show up in my feed again, right? Like if I've commented on them once, I'm assuming they probably share content often enough to have surfaced in front of me. So I want to see that content in the future. So I follow them so they end up in my feed. I also do this through Sales Navigator. That's kind of another step where I have, like isolated ICP communities for the cities that I want to be spending time in going forward. That's where I am in my business. We're thinking about splitting time. So it's a big mindset thing and focus for me. But people who engage with you are very important as well. You want to show that reciprocal engagement. Somebody comes to your post, they comment on your post, or if they even like it and don't comment, in that 10 minutes, open their profile, go to their most recent piece of content, comment on it, show that reciprocal engagement back. Not only is it, what I call virtuous circles, it's a way to build like good virtuous circles between you. It also signals the LinkedIn algorithm that you are closer to this person and you're closer connected because they've interacted with you, you've interacted with them, and therefore you're both going to be more likely to see each other in the feeds in the future. Any questions about that commenting strategy? If not, we'll keep rolling.
I had a quick question. Feel free to
Mm-hmm.
type in the chat for everyone.
Yeah.
We have a lot of cool stuff that we can go over. I'm sure at the later slides or other parts of the strategy, something will come up for you. I wanted to ask you, Chris, do you use any
Yeah.
kind of that service that you mentioned, Sales Navigator? Is
Mm-hmm.
that like a CRM basically?
Sales
Or
Navigator is actually one of LinkedIn's products.
oh, got it.
It's a paid product that's part of premium. So they really help you kind of isolate profiles, and you can kind of filter down by area, by job title, by whether or not someone's active in like the last 30 or 60 days on LinkedIn. You've got a lot of filters there where you can build lists and then you can just interact with those lists. So that's kind of how I treat it. Essentially, I think of it as paying for itself if it gives me some fresh
Mhm.
conversations every month. But like if I really encourage people to build like something on a free CRM like Trello. I have a simple swim lane board on Trello as well of like, okay, I commented on this person's content. They viewed my profile. Maybe they're following me. They're engaged in so much as they're like engaging with my content consistently. What's, kind of engagement moving to kind of a warm lead to DM conversation to call booked to client. So I've got that visual of that board going in swim lanes from left to right. And I do this, I'm religious about it and kind of crazy about it. Of every bit of interaction I did my post on today, every bit of interaction I do is in that board. If I comment on somebody's posts, they go on a card. If they look at my profile, they go on a card because I want to track every bit of that activity to see somebody that's close to me versus somebody that's what I call like drive-by engagement who comes by once and engages and I don't ever see them again. So that's how like visually I separate between somebody that's kind of lightly engaged with what I'm doing versus more heavily engaged.
Got it.
Um,
Oh, that makes sense. I didn't know LinkedIn had that. That's very cool. It's
yeah,
basically having a like a it's like a funnel basically
yeah,
through
they really,
LinkedIn getting to like what you need. Well, we have a good
yeah,
question from we have two questions from
yeah.
Mishka. Is it necessary to have a premium account to run a freelancing business?
Uh, yes and no. I say no, it's not absolutely necessary, but there are some pretty substantial limitations that LinkedIn places on free accounts. For example, you can only see your 5 most recent profile viewers, and you can't see all the other people that have looked at your profile. So if there are 30, 40 people that have looked at your profile, you're only going to see your 5 most recent profile viewers. As I'll talk a little bit about later, that kind of restricts your activity to an extent. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's worth it, honestly, in my opinion. You can definitely try if you're first getting started. Try go the free route for a while and just see how it feels for you, and build your own CRM or build something simple, um, which which you can use. But I do recommend it if you're really serious about LinkedIn and building your presence there. It's worth it.
Yeah. And also, I would say, just in general, for your freelancing business, for being self-employed, if there's some way for you, like where you are or where you're set up, to make it into a tax-deductible business expense, that basically gets you halfway there, at least in terms of
Right.
making it worth it. So, like, that is one of the changes of mindset that a lot of us go through being a freelancer, being self-employed, that it's like, oh, I have to pay for all this extra stuff that I'm not really used to. But you have
Yep,
to understand that like this is how you get there and how you get to what you need. So we do have a
sure.
couple other questions, but I wonder if they will
Yeah.
be more applicable on other slides. So maybe let's
Yeah, and
go on to
actually
the
make
next one.
I may cover some of this along the way, but keep them there and keep them teed up, and we'll go through them at the halfway point. Yeah, so commenting tactics, again, comment on your ICP content first. Also, another one that I think is very important is a good way to be seen as a helper and somebody that's supporting other people, that are creating, is to leave comments on content that's really good. You're like, wow, I got something out of that. I took some value from it, but no one else is engaging with it. We're all in that place at one time or another. When I first started putting stuff out there, I was getting one or two likes and a comment or two. And I really appreciated the people who would leave a comment when I put something thoughtful out there. So do that for other people, and you'll find out that they reciprocate for you. Again, reciprocal commenting. If somebody, comes and engages with your stuff and they're supporting you, make sure you do the same in return. One thing you'll hear all the time is find the influencers in your niche and make sure to comment on their content. Yes and no. Only if you can beat others to the punch. Only if you can beat others to the punch. And what I mean by that is if you start to recognize that an influencer in your niche, whatever it may be, posts at 7:30 Central every morning. It's like clockwork. You're on that time and you see you're doing your activity and you see that they're on as well. Try to get in there and be like the first comment or the second comment. If you can do that, you've got a good chance of getting a nice rush of profile views from it, especially if it's a really value packed comment. But if you get to their posts and you see that there's already a huge list of comments, don't bother. It's really not worth it. Just move on and stick with people in your ICP. Okay. Okay, content sharing, actual content creation. You do not have to share a post every single day. And I know we kind of got the response of conflicting wisdom earlier. This is one of those pieces of conventional wisdom that you'll hear all the time. So you have to post every single day. You see these challenges of 365 days on LinkedIn or whatever, where people are trying to post every single day for 365 days. All that's going to do is burn you out. Do not put that against yourself, especially when you're first getting started. Find your version of consistency and figure out what it means, and do stick to that. You do need to stick to that, but figure out what that means for you. Maybe it's 3 posts a week. Maybe it's 2 posts a week. Maybe to get started and to get comfortable and get your feet on the ground, it's 1 post a week. Make it something that's a win for you, that you can actually get a quick win from it, and not something that's going to put you into that burnout zone where you get tired of it, and LinkedIn commenting and your activity and posting becomes a chore, because when you get there, you're going to be much more likely to walk away from it and quit right before you should. So take it easy on yourself, find your version of consistency, and stick with that. Messaging strategy. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you get these cold pitch DMs, right? Um, Now with AI in the mix, it's getting even worse, and it just absolutely makes my eyes roll into the back of my head when somebody like cold pitches me with an obviously Chat GPT generated pitch of some sort. People are even repurposing my content into comments using Chat GPT. I'm like, no, like make the effort. As an aside, don't do that. If you want to use Chat GPT, use it for other purposes, but don't use it to generate comments or to do outreach. It's just disconnected. You're going to get a bad response from it. Most of the DMs that I get, the pitches that I get, either cold, pitching a product, or the one that I hate even worse, the connect and pitch, where somebody sends a connection request, I accept it, and then they immediately pitch me, are scripted. They're boring, they're canned. These people are trying to play the numbers game. More often than not, they're not welcomed when they come into your DMs. So do something different. And the thought process here is get to that point of a warm conversation. And that's why I encourage those swim lanes and that pipeline of thinking, okay, I commented on this person's post. They came and looked at my profile. I said, hey, I sent him a quick DM saying, hey, thanks for looking at my profile. Appreciate you dropping by. Hope you have a great week. So now I've established another point of contact. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I've established another point of contact. So now maybe they engage with my content again. I'm engaging with theirs. There's obviously some reciprocation there. It's getting a little bit to be a little bit of a warmer relationship. So then I have the confidence to say, okay, they know who I am. They've interacted with my content. They're following me. We've sent we've sent like some DMs back and forth. So now I can reach out and say, hey, how's it going? How's Q3 going for you so far? What does Q4 look like for you? I'm just curious how everything's going, and start an open-ended conversation. That's a DM that's going to help you start to chat about where that person is, how they're doing, whether they're doing well, whether they're not doing well. And then you can naturally take the conversation from there to move it toward a call or to take them offline rather than just cold pitching. And I don't think people take the tactical time to go through those steps, but it can be extremely valuable. And when you have that pipeline built, you can really start to see, okay, it's going to take me 20 comments to have 3 followers or 5 followers out of that block of comments. I mean, these are just raw numbers. I'm doing this off the top of my head. And people following that 5 comments, like 3 or 4 of those are reciprocal engagement, right? And then I will have like a warm DM opportunity with like 1 or 2 of those people. So what's your pipeline? Like, how many comments do you need to leave to get people coming to check you out, to the engagement point, to pushing them forward? That's why the tactical part of this is so important. Because if you're just commenting and commenting and commenting and DMing and sending profile or connection requests all the time, it's just all over the place. You're not, it's not really linear. And that's why this type of a messaging strategy can be so beneficial for you. All right. Yeah, let's go through a few of these other questions real quick. It's a
Yeah.
good spot for it.
Yeah. I see Caitlin. I think we got to this question actually. Is it always do we always wait to establish a warm lead or connection before reaching out more directly to pitch or to ask or offer?
Yes, absolutely. It has to be warm. I mean, the people that argue the converse of that say, well, if you send enough you send massive cold outreach lists, hundreds, right? You're going to get some bites because you'll happen to fall upon people who have that specific need and see you as a specific kind of option or resource to help them with their situation. But no, I don't believe in that. I really think it has to be that kind of slowly built, warm relationship. You're going to be much more likely to get the results you want in the end from that, from taking the time to slowly build warm relationships rather than cold pitching.
Great. Next from Katayun, is it necessarily a good thing to accumulate followers? You can have many, many followers who are not relevant or who are not your ICP. Most likely, not all of them will be.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with accumulating followers. It's not really about that as much as not to play the influencer game where you're constantly like chasing, um, clout chasing, or you're just trying like sharing controversial content or certain types of content that just drive you followers. I mean, then you're just playing the vanity metrics game. It's really not benefiting you as much as it does to, really slowly, kind of do the slow burn and the slow build of targeting that, hyper targeting your outreach, hyper targeting your content to speak specifically to the pain points of your ideal client. As you do that, you're naturally going to get more followers that belong to that ICP. And as that happens, your potential to build warm relationships increases. And yeah, as Bernard said, you can't really control who follows you. So I don't think it's really so much about, building a following being a bad thing as it is it being lightly controllable. But there are some things you can do when those followers come, to your door to take advantage of that, right? And leverage your followers, so you have the potential to move forward and build some good relationships.
Um, I'm thinking maybe, oh, it sounds like you have a follow-up as well. I'm going to try to unmute you and see if that works. If you'd like to clarify your question more, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for unmuting me and thanks for all the information. That's great. The thing is that I find that, there is, I don't want to put a name on them. You probably all know there's thousands of people outside in Asia that start following you because they want to get into the North American market. And that's fine. Like, as you said, I don't mind, like, whoever follows me. But then after a couple of weeks, they all start wanting to be contacts and they all start sending messages, asking me, very general questions. Can you explain to me from scratch what is it that you work on, things like that, like those kinds of DMs.
Yeah.
And I find that first of all, I don't want to connect with them because then I check their pages, I see that, it's not something that I want to see
Hmm.
in my feed every day, like what they're
Yep.
posting, it's no use. And then it's going
Right.
to expose me to more of their friends, and their
Mhm.
contacts who I don't want to be accumulating. So I get stuck in there. Like, what do I do? So right now, what I'm doing is I'm picking and choosing. Like when they send me connection um, invites, I'm just picking and choosing who I want to be connected with based on whether I
Yep.
see their feed or not.
Hmm.
Plus, I don't know how to respond to this overwhelming number of requests to who want to have a meeting with me and know from scratch what I'm doing and how
Hmm.
I can get into the business. I don't know how to handle that. I don't want to spend much time. I don't want to leave people's messages unanswered either. Just
Yeah.
ignore. I don't like to
Yeah.
do that.
I decline requests every day. I get multiple connection requests on a daily basis, and I only accept typically those who are people that kind of are in my world, and think there's a potential for partnership or collaboration, or people in the ICP, and that's it. I'm pretty ruthless about it at this point. I've been at this for 3 years. Your feed is your feed. Your following is your following. Your connections are your connections. I don't think you need to feel beholden to anybody to provide advice or accept that connection requests from people that kind of fall outside of the people that you want to interact with every day because of this tactical nature and the limited time that you have to work on these activities. So don't feel bad about denying connection requests. Don't feel bad about trying to get to every single cold DM message that you get. It's no one's responsibility to do that. They're sending these to you cold, so their expectation of a response is relatively less than somebody that was sending it to you warm and actually knows you and you've got a relationship built. So I wouldn't feel bad about it. Certainly don't put the stress on yourself for responding to every single cold DM. I don't do that. I don't think anybody that works on this tactically does. Pick and choose. Like you said, choose the people you feel like could provide you value in a relationship and vice versa. And that's going to be the best use of your time.
Great. All right. Maybe let's continue with our slides. I do see a question about ICP, but there is a slide about that
Yeah, going to
later.
cover.
And
Yep.
Rosie, for your question, we probably leave that to the end, I think.
Profile viewers and leveraging your profile viewers. I feel like this is something people don't really take advantage of. Um, I'll ask you a question right now, and I want you all to each drop this in chat. How often do you look to see who's looking at your profiles? So drop your answer in chat. Say often, sometimes, never. I understand that. Okay, when you get notifications, seeing that a couple times, sometimes, whenever LinkedIn reminds me, never. Look often but don't do anything. Okay, maybe every few days. All right. Often, yeah. Without premium, you can't see them. Correct. That's one of the downsides for sure. Okay, cool. Yeah. Every time you get a notification. All right. So I guess my question to you more generally, you don't have to answer this in chat, is what do you do then? I'm willing to bet if you do look often that you don't do anything beyond that step, beyond just seeing, okay, they looked at my profile. especially if they fit your ideal client profile. But even in a case when it's somebody that maybe doesn't fit perfectly, send them a DM, even if it's a cold DM and you're not directly connected. That just is this simple. Title is, hey, thanks for looking at my profile, or hey, thanks for dropping by my profile. And then the body of the DM is something like, hey, Chris, thanks so much for dropping by by my profile. I appreciate you coming by. I hope you're having a great month so far. Take it easy, or see you on LinkedIn, Chris, something like that. All that does is kind of works on the assumption of everybody that comes to your profile comes with an intent. They come for a reason, right? So play on that. Make the assumption that people came to your profile for a reason. They obviously clicked for some reason. Either your comment drove their interest, a piece of content that you wrote drove their interest. Your profile was interesting enough, like when they were looking through a search feed or something like that, that they came by to check on it. So play on that and leverage that and send them a message. I know it'll feel awkward, but you'd be surprised how many responses you'll get of like, hey, yeah, I was checking out, this type of person and I ran across your profile. Interesting what you do. And you can start a conversation. Because people don't get those messages, because not many people actually leverage their profile viewers and send those messages to just give a simple thank you of, hey, thanks for dropping by my profile. Try it out.
It kind of reminds me how kind of modern dating works. It's like if everyone is
Yeah.
afraid to ask, then nothing will ever happen.
Yeah. So everybody's like, I'm looking at you, I see you seeing me, you see me seeing you, but then that's as far as it goes, right? And the irony of this, and one of the weird situations you'll see if you don't do it, is I will land on that person's profile views because I'm looking at their profile. They'll land on mine. So it's like we see each other, but no one's taking the steps to establish a conversation. So just take that one extra step. Yeah, it'll be uncomfortable, but do it. And if you really want to block yourself, there is that option within your settings within LinkedIn where you can be private. So it doesn't actually show that it's you looking at their profile. In return, it'll show, in my case, it would be like founder from Austin, Texas, or something like that with the grayed out avatar. So yeah, figure out what that means for your situation. And if you want to be more private, that's always an option as well. All right, cool. Do you interact with your followers? Going back to Katian's question earlier about like kind of adding followers, you're going to have new followers every week, and it's not really in your control of who those people are. Number one, do you check to see who they are? But number two, do you interact with them back? Because especially if you have your profile set to follow, which some of you may, people may follow you, but you may not be connected. So if they're following you and they fit your ICP, you may not know that unless you're actually looking at your followers to see who's following you day over day. I do that first thing every morning to see, okay, are there any new CEOs or founders or COOs in here that are following me that I'm not yet connected to? If so, I'm going to click on their profile, see what their content is. If they have created, I'm going to interact with their content, because I want them to see that I know that they're following me, because that just kind of takes it one more step further and helps to establish, more of that relationship and kind of the warmer elements. So think about that. Look at your followers. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them may be people that are just random and you don't really know who they are, but pick out the ones that are close to your ideal client profile, or could fit in that mold of somebody you want to know, and go back and look at their profile, interact with their content, and then follow them if you do. Takes things a step further. Rather than just kind of hoarding followers, you're actually interacting with those followers, and and you're helping to kind of move things along. Yep, that's exactly what you should do. That's exactly the process, and just check their posts, and if they align with you, follow them back, because then you're starting to establish that warm relationship. It sends that signal on LinkedIn to the algorithm that you're one step closer, even if you're not first connections yet, that you're closer. And so those people will be more likely to land on your feed, because ultimately the overarching goal of spending time on LinkedIn is for your entire feed, whether you sort it by top or sort it by recent, to be full of your ICP. So that way you're not having to constantly do all this chasing to find those people. They're just there and you're just interacting with their content as fast as you can. Yeah, okay, cool. And we'll hold any questions for one more slide and then we're almost at the end, you guys. So someone asked about isolating your ICP. So your ideal client persona is made up of a few different elements here. So there's three parts. Demographics, right? So demographics are obviously where are they located? What kind of job do they do? What kind of company do they work for? Is there a certain age range that you're interested in? Is there a certain funding level if it's companies? Is it a certain kind of profile of a website if you're looking for writing opportunities? You know, what's the demographic makeup? That's kind of like the harder characteristics of your ideal client persona. It's the demographics. The second part is psychographics. And this is where you dig in a little bit deeper to think about, you know, what are their pain points? What are their goals? What are their dreams? What do they desire from the work that they do? What are their roadblocks? How do they communicate? What's the story that they're telling? So when you've got those demographics and you can sketch those out, I would even go so far as to use, you know, a tool to sketch out your ICP. And I just dropped a link in the chat for a really good free service for this called UserForge, where you can actually go in and develop that persona. You can even actually add like a stock photo. You can give them a name. You can add age and all these other characteristics. So you can actually have a visual of who that person is as you're developing your ICP. So I would encourage you to use UserForge. There's several others like it to really nail down who that is. So you've got, you know, demographics. So yeah, Miro is awesome. Demographics, psychographics, and also behaviors. So think about, you know, does this person behave as you would think that they would, given the mixture of who they are, where they are, how much money they make, you know, gender, kind of affiliations, their goals, their dreams, their thoughts. How would they behave given that? So that knowing that behavior and kind of how they would act in terms of the way that they're building their business or the relationships that they build helps you put like emotional tags to that. So what does that mean for their emotions? And one of the most important things that you have to do when you're developing content is to elicit emotion, to get people to say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I absolutely don't agree with that, or yes, this person gets me. They feel my situation because what they're saying is something I deeply identify with. That's the difference between surface pain points, which for like our ideal clients, when we're talking to CEOs and founders, the surface pain point is I don't have time to create content. You know, it's a roadblock for me. I'm the bottleneck in our content process. We're producing content, but it's not good enough. It's kind of has this good enough problem where it's just decent. It's something we have to, you know, click off a checkbox. But the below surface pain point is really what you want to get after. And the below surface pain points for that person are more like I'm stressed out because I know I'm leaving opportunity on the table because I'm not creating good enough content at a high enough clip. Or I think it's affecting our bottom line as a company because we're not generating enough leads because our content strategy isn't cohesive. So you want to take it a step further from just the surface stuff that you know is the problem to one step deeper. You know, if you're trying to find a writing opportunity, you know, the problem on the surface is that website may not have enough content, but their real problem is because they don't have enough content, they're not ranking well in SEO, they're not getting organic traffic, you know, they're not developing their business. And so the problem that you solve as a writer looking for that opportunity is to come in and help them develop more content faster so they can have that positioning, they're developing thought leadership, and their business is growing. So think about the difference here. Yeah, but I mean, you can approach this 100% free to really dig into this. There are other tools out there that help you map out ICPs that are paid. You know, Rosie mentioned here that Miro is really good for like developing mind maps. Yeah, it's fantastic where you can think about all the different elements of somebody's personality and who they are and, you know, where they are and kind of the psychographic elements as well. You know, there's other things you can use out there. There's one this is another good tool, SparkToro, that's free. There's another called Answer the Public, where you can go and kind of do research on your particular niche, where you can type in keywords and say, okay, I want to know what questions people are asking that are related to this keyword, or I want to know like who's asking, what's kind of their makeup, so you can start to really dig in and help you flesh out your ICP given those scenarios. So I hope that's helpful in that respect. Okay.
Yeah,
Next.
no, this is awesome. I have two kind of thoughts to share about ICP and like finding the right people. One is if anyone knows Peter Thiel, who was the co-founder of PayPal with Elon
Yep.
Musk. He was an early investor in Facebook and on the board. He has a book about startups. I'll post it here. It's called Zero to One. And in one of his lectures, I think he came up with this. He shared this idea about like how to think about startups or how to think about also just finding your voice in general. Is that the question that he asks himself or of others is, what is something that you believe is true but nobody else agrees with? And then
Yes.
that's like something that you can really use to flesh out kind of like what your unique perspective is, because we all have something like that from our life experiences, for our career experiences, things that we've learned but we have kept to ourselves for whatever reason. And like that's where you'd want to start to express and find the people who also arrived at that point on their own independently, and then that's where
Right.
you'll find the resonating. I also want to just quickly mention that in the Prospology program, our curriculum does help you to find your voice as well, not just your clinical or like content niche of your expertise, but also personally your voice and how you want to tell stories and how you want to share about yourself or things that you know. I see we have a couple students and also alumni from our program grads. And so hopefully, that aspect of the curriculum was helpful to all of you. So I think, is that the last slide? Yes,
That
conclusion.
is,
Let's
yeah,
go
just,
finish off.
yeah. And again, just wrapping it up, the general theme today is that highly targeted, repeatable, and consistent tactical activity on LinkedIn is what matters. Not volume, tactical. That having that time block and digging into that every day or as often as you can is what's going to make the difference for you. And I promise you, if you commit to that, you'll see success. It's a slow burn. It's not going to happen in 60 days. It may not happen in 90 days, but 3 to 6 months, yeah, you're going to start to see some momentum, and it's going to make a big difference for you. All right.
Okay. More questions. There was one that I was holding on for the end.
Yeah.
Well, first I want to check with Tanya. Did the slide about ICP answer your question about how to define it? Feel free to share or clarify with that. And we had a question from Rosie, if it's okay to share, Chris, if you could share how your swim lane works in Trello, or is that
Yep.
something that you use just for yourself?
I can show. So let me
All right,
find
let
it.
me try to oh, sorry. How do I multiple, and then I'll stop mine and then try sharing for you.
All right, yeah. So basically, I'm not necessarily going to show you my outbound comment lane. I'm going to keep that one to myself. But this is the idea, right? And it's kind of empty now because I'm reworking it, and I have more that I'm pulling back into it from Sales Navigator, and I did empty it out a little bit in anticipation of showing this to y'all today. But it's moving from outbound comment. Like if I go and I leave a comment on somebody's post, they land in a card in that lane, then they move here to profile view. If they've looked at my profile, if they're following me, they move into following. If they're engaged, if they're actually engaging with my content, I consider them engaged at that point. If we've started a DM conversation, it moves here. So you can see it's just moving from left to right, and how warm they are and how much closer they are to becoming a client. I've booked a call, they become a client. That's kind of the notion, and that's how it moves from one to the next. Trello is great, number one, because it's free. You don't have to pay for it. You have to pay for add-ons a little bit as time goes on. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it looks like, to give you a quick look.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful. All right, let's get back to more questions. Feel free. Oh, sorry. Any other questions? I just want to say this was very helpful and, gave me a lot of um, insight for myself because I restarted my LinkedIn profile like a year ago and just like have not uh, touched it at all. So this
Yeah.
gives me a lot of good ideas on like, especially because I'm actually not a medical writer in like the mental health field.
Right,
Like
right.
LinkedIn is
Yeah.
not really something that we use a lot. So, but it does give me other
Sure.
ideas for kind of like B2B. I'm very
Yeah.
curious about paid consulting in the future. That might be more like a B2B application for LinkedIn. We have a
Right.
question from Rona.
Yeah, I did see
What
that.
do you do
Make
when
sure
someone posts something negative?
negative. I come from a sports writing background, and there's this kind of phrase in the sports writing world of "don't feed the trolls." So I deeply encourage you to not respond to negative comments unless it's something you really feel like you can diffuse in a single comment. Um, it will happen, and honestly, it should happen. If you're doing a good job at establishing your brand, there are going to be a certain number of people or certain groups of people that may not agree with what you have to say, and that's okay. Not everybody's going to, and it's not so bad to be polarizing sometimes. So don't respond. Don't feed the trolls. Don't start a conversation because like a lot of people do that just to push buttons because ultimately they may not have anything better to do, or they're frustrated with their own progress or whatever it may be. So I encourage you to not get involved unless it's really something you can feel like you can dissolve quickly.
Right. And now from Caitlin,
Yeah.
is creator mode more effective than non-creator mode? I'm guessing this is a feature on LinkedIn.
Yeah, creator mode. There's been a few studies done. Richard Vanderblom is somebody I encourage everybody to follow if you have interest in the, kind of the way that the algorithm unfolds. He does some really deep dive analytical studies on the algorithm and pulls back reports like once a month with suggestions. And one of his suggestions is kind of along those lines is to turn creator mode on and add to it 3 to 4 hashtags that primarily fit to the type of content that you share, and make sure that you use those same hashtags in your content, because basically it triggers, when you turn that on creator mode, it's on your profile. You're saying, like in my case, I talk about content strategy, copywriting, founders, startups are the 4 I use typically. If I have those 4 attached to my profile within creator mode, according to his studies here within the last couple of quarters or so, you get a small reach bump, a couple percentage reach bump. So for that purpose, for that reason alone, I think it's worth it.
Right. Awesome. Um, Simi, I've gotten leads from people watching how gracefully I diffuse negativity, but almost always I ignore unless I have something that adds value to my own message. Um, and if there's a negative
Yes.
reaction, I just make my own future content about my own
Yes.
ideas and not engage. That's actually a great idea. It's like
Yes.
all feedback
Yes.
is interesting and you can learn something from it. You can do
Right.
something with it without actually engaging with the person, because more likely than not, it can be a drain on your time. And as well, and one of Chris's main points today is that you have to be efficient with your time and don't spend too much. And this is a great way to get bogged down in negativity or feeling frustrated with your time on LinkedIn.
That's
So
fantastic, Simi. That's a
yes,
great way to flip it into content. And that's, you know, part of the frustration of being consistent on LinkedIn is running out of content ideas. That's a great way to think about content and, and ideas that you can develop. Another one I'd like to encourage everybody to do is when you go through and you're leaving comments on other people's posts, save those comments, save those in a file. Literally write the comment, hit post, copy it, and paste it into a document. Put it in a Google Doc or a Notion or a Word doc or a Pages doc or whatever it may be, because on those days when you're having writer's block, you can go back to that document, tend to call it a swipe file. You can go back to that swipe file and scan that and say, okay, I left a comment on this, left a comment on that. had really had a lot of conviction about this thing. So it could spark a post idea for you. So think about that as well. It's another way to use your comments for another purpose.
Hey, great. I think we're at the close for our time today. We just wanted to provide some follow-up for all of you. I'm going to post all the links as well for our website, prospology.com. If you are interested in leaving behind your regular career for more freedom, more flexibility, and also more income in the long run, please consider applying for our medical writing program. We have the LinkedIn links for Chris, for myself, and our founder, Sophie. Fortunately, she could not join us today, but she has great content. She's posting very consistently. She also has her own newsletter, the email newsletter. Feel free to subscribe there. And again, if you would like to have access to our meeting recording for the future, it is $15 on our website. You can go to the events tab, I think the events page, and register there. And so again, thank you all for coming. I think we had a great turnout. And it was a great pleasure for me to host. Actually, to confess, this was my first time hosting and being the MC. I have presented in the past, but this was a great experience for me. And Chris, thank you so much for sharing all your insights and your wisdom. I can really feel that you have all this experience, and it was a great blessing for us to hear from you today. Okay,
Yeah, thank you very
everyone.
much. Enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you all for coming. Feel free to keep in touch with us on LinkedIn.
All right, everybody.